Here we go, let's talk stadiums, ladies and gentlemen, in Auckland. Jim Doyle is a man who's very familiar to us sports fans in this country, former CEO of the Warriors, of course, and now heavily involved project director and helping out in every way possible for the plans for this multi-billion-dollar stadium for Auckland. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Good morning, Martin.
Well, it's caused much discussion and much oohing and ahhing and awe and wonder after, obviously, the drawings were released across the weekend. I got to say, it is one of the most spectacular-looking buildings I've ever seen planned for Auckland. So congratulations to all involved for even getting it to this stage.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. It's something, I've been a big fan of trying to do something better than what we've got. I've been involved in sport, as you said, but obviously even prior to that, when I was involved in business, I've been here for over 30 years, and New Zealand's home for me. And I do remember distinctly 2008 when we missed an opportunity to do something special before the 2011 World Cup. And we thought, we can't just keep going around in circles and doing the same thing. Or actually, we can't keep going around in circles and doing nothing, which leads us to always doing the same thing as what we've got, because the present stadium structure doesn't work. But we knew we needed to do something quite unique and a bit different. And a stadium by itself, for me, doesn't really work, and that's why it has to be part of a precinct, which includes residential, commercial, hospitality, etc., which then can help fund, obviously, the stadium, and it brings the whole precinct then to life. And then working with HKS, and they've got a global philosophy where, they don't want to just build a concrete box. They want to build a stadium that sort of fits with the culture of the area. And what they've put together here is astounding. We always had it with the concept that it would be aligned to Rangitoto, and it would always have that curtain so you can actually see Rangitoto. But the concept of design that they've done to really create it something that all Kiwis would be proud of is pretty special.
Look, there's got to be a lot of cynicism around this as well, and there's got a lot of big eyebrow raising, of course, because anything to do with, saying the word stadium in New Zealand in any city, it always causes that. And we've seen that in Wellington, Christchurch, it doesn't matter where you go. You're talking about quite a few $1 billion here. So first and foremost, who's funding this? And ratepayers and taxpayers going to have to dig in for it?
Well, for me, obviously, this will be a joint. It'll be a public and private sort of funding. And we definitely believe that it will be cheaper than anything else, right? And I don't mean cheaper than the Sunken Stadium and the Wynyard Quarter one. It'll be cheaper than anything else we got. Because if we do nothing, if we just sit here and do what we normally do, which is do nothing, at some point in time, someone's going to say, you know what, Mount Smart needs a big upgrade because it's no longer health and safety or compliant, etc. And that'll cost $400 or $500 million. And even if we don't spend that, then they'll say, no, sorry, we had to shut it down because they're not spending that much money. Then in another 8 or 10 years' time, whatever, Eden Park will require an upgrade, and that'll be over $1 billion. So we're not sitting facing a situation where Auckland Council or the government can just stick with what we've got and it'll never cost another penny forever and a day. This will cost a lot less than that because of the public-private equity, and we've got a lot of people from overseas and local heavily involved and willing to be involved in the development. And because it's a precinct, as I say, that offsets a lot of the costs. And it gives us something that we can all be proud of for 50 and 100 years to come from, rather than just do nothing and one day spend a lot of money.
In terms of the government and also legislation around getting the land, being able to do what you want with it, moving existing buildings, the resource consents, the mire that is just, the weight of all of that, as soon as you start thinking about building anything in Auckland, seems to be so overwhelming. Have you had any discussions at those kind of levels as to how you would get around all of that and fast-track this thing?
Yeah, we have, Mark. We've had some discussion because you like to say everything takes forever. And that's theoretically, that's our biggest ask when it comes to Auckland Council and the government. We've been working, obviously, with Ngāti Whātua, who are the landowner, and, working through commercial options and things with them. But this would be regarded as a project of national significance, which would then help with a lot of that red tape. But that would be our biggest challenge going forward. can you imagine if this went ahead and all the red tape, and obviously the thing needs to be done properly, so not all the red tape, but the process was streamlined where it could be done under, fast option, still doing it properly. I mean, this could be done the stadium could be built by 2029 to host the Lions. So it could be something of real substance, but the majority of that red tape and the delay that comes along with it under normal circumstances would have to be sort of really, really fast-tracked.
And that means that there's going to have to be legislative changes from, central government to be able to do that. 2029, so in a dream case scenario, starting work, turning sods and building it, if you could do it as fast as you possibly could, how many years would it take to build everything you want?
To build everything, as in the precinct, the residential, the commercial, etc., this sort of be 15 years plus, but the stadium could take between 5 and 6.
Jim Doyle is with us, and he's the project director and heavily involved in this new idea of a downtown Auckland stadium, the U-shaped people that you've seen framing Rangitoto. Eden Park has got its own plan, 2.0, and that was costed at $537 million. What would happen to that, and have you had any discussions at all with Nick Sorton or with the Eden Park Trust, with anyone involved there?
No, Eden Park, and they're obviously looking and focusing very much on doing what suits their present circumstances. From our point of view, obviously, you don't need 2 stadiums in Auckland, and in fact, you don't need 4 because we've got Mount Smart, North Harbour, etc. With our conversations with, first and foremost, the All Blacks, New Zealand Rugby, the Warriors, Bill Foley's A-League team, concert promoters, etc., they've all told us 100% that if the stadium gets built, that's where all the content will be held.
In terms of the All Blacks, though, and I'm just looking at, thinking out loud here, thinking, okay, how many games a year would they need to be played to have people in that stadium, to get them downtown, to be turning it over? Would that effectively mean then that this would become the national stadium, and that's where the All Blacks would only play? Because otherwise, if you've got this thing, it's becoming a white elephant if you start hosting tests in Christchurch and Wellington and everywhere else, isn't it? So would that mean that's the All Blacks' home base?
I don't think you can say it'd be a white elephant, because then that would mean that Eden Park, Mount Smart and North Harbour are all white elephants, because at the end of the day, it would bring all the content to one place. I don't think the All Blacks will ever play all their games in one place, whether it's at the stadium or not. They will, I would believe, take content to other places, but they would play the majority of their games here.
In terms of New Zealand Rugby putting money in, have they talked about that?
Well, they've got, obviously, a partnership with Silver Lake, and they're looking to improve their balance sheet. They're looking to do things outside the sporting arena. So basically, they've set up this Conco, and there's discussions taking place as to how they do that. For me, if they had an All Blacks hotel there, and it would be a pretty significant, classy hotel. It wouldn't be just a cheap thing that, you're sleeping with All Blacks, what do you call them, bedspreads and things. It's not a kids thing. But they did a proper hotel and things there. It means that they're getting revenue, whether there's a concert there, whether there's a Warriors game, a Blues game, not only just when the All Blacks are playing. And so it opens them up to increase their revenue for every single event that takes place there.
Let's talk about Ngāti Whātua.
And also, Martin, when you think about it, Martin, if you're an international visitor in a lot of aspects, and no disrespect to the Crown Plaza or the Hilton or whatever else, but if you've got a choice of staying somewhere in Auckland, I would imagine a lot of people will choose to stay at the All Blacks Hotel.
As far as Ngāti Whātua go and their involvement, so where the proposed stadium would be built and all around, that is solely, they own all of that land around there?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, obviously there's a bit of depends on where the crossover goes with the port and things, but that whole Key Park area to Tangaroa, that's their land.
What would happen with the port?
Oh, well, the port stays as it is. This doesn't have an impact on the port. I mean, we considered, obviously, port land and things, but if the port disappears, that whole area is by far the most expensive land in the whole country. So you wouldn't build a stadium on the most expensive land in the whole country.
If Ngāti Whātua weren't involved, didn't give it the green tick, didn't actually fully support it, how difficult would it be actually getting it done? Is it absolutely essential that they have to be on side?
Oh, 100%. There's no way you would try and do anything without their support.
In terms of the practicality of building anything, and I'm asking questions because having lived in Auckland, having watched the bumbling and fumbling that went on trying to fix a water leak on College Hill that took almost 2 years, sewage is pumped into the harbour every time it rains because of the overflow of the drains. You get a crash on the motorway, the whole city goes into gridlock. Down that part of Auckland, around Commercial Bay and that, Jim, as well, it's road cone city. They've been working on that part of town for a decade or more now. And so just the practicalities of Auckland or New Zealand being able to get its act together and actually do this, physically do this. We had a light rail plan where they've spent billions of dollars doing nothing apart from talking and sending email trees around, and that's now been scratched. So, are we actually as a country even able to finish a project like this?
Of course, Martin. Of course we can. I mean, we can all take the glass half empty, and if we did that, there's a lot of roadblocks in creating something like this, and therefore you just give up at the first goal. But, I've been here for over 30 years, and I remember when I first arrived here, there was no such thing as the Viaduct Harbour. There was no pubs in the city and anything like that close to the waterfront. There wasn't a Viaduct Harbour, there wasn't a Wynyard Quarter, there wasn't a commercial bay, there was no Britomart, and they're all there now. And yes, obviously some things take significantly longer than they should do. But if we think about where we want to be in 50 years' time, that Te Tangaroa and that eastern side of the city looks pretty crap, and therefore it would help reshape the whole waterfront, including Wynyard Quarter, Viaduct Harbour, etc., Commercial Bay and Britomart. So we can achieve things if we really put a mind to it.
The idea of having something that is like a Sydney Opera House that, defines the country almost. As soon as I read that, I just thought, wow, that to me is what I call vision. And when you say, 50 years, I think we've all got to remember as well that this may not necessarily be for us. If it's finished in our lifetime, that's fine. But it's actually something for generations to follow, isn't it? And Jim, you're so right. And I remember the opposition when they started rebuilding the viaduct. And I remember the opposition when the Wynyard Quarter. And yet there's no one now that walks around there that wouldn't say, hey, this is a hell of an addition to the city.
100%. And again, it's part of the things that we've been talking about to the council and to the government. And to the government, we're not building this for us. If we're lucky, we'll get a seat there at the first couple of games before we're gone. But at the end of the day, we're building it for our kids and their kids. And something that no matter where you are in the world, if you're watching an event at that stadium, you know that that's from New Zealand. And it puts you on the international stage. It helps bring international visitors, etc. And that's a big part of this. The economic development will be massive if this precinct goes ahead.
Okay, I'm going to throw another spanner in the wheel here. And I've been reading an article on The Australian because I did a little bit of research around this. And this one says the proposed Brisbane Olympic Arena, and they want the Olympic Games in 2032, of course, would cost nearly $1 billion more than the income and benefits it generated. And so now they're pulling the handbrake up on that. Now, Brisbane's a city which has a population 3 times the size of Auckland. If they couldn't cover the costs or get the books to balance, how could Auckland do it if that's the case?
Yeah, but again, Martin, you're looking at in the context as they've already got Suncorp Stadium, they've already got the Gabba, they've already got a lot of stadiums there that are actually quite good and world class, and then actually reasonably good locations. Whereas what we've got, as I say, everybody seems to be jumping straight to the why spend the money to do this? What's the point of doing this? We don't need more stadiums, which is right. We don't need more stadiums. But if we do nothing, and that's what I keep saying to people, if we do nothing, it's going to cost us over $1 billion anyway, and we'll still in 20 years' time have the same situation we've presently got. That, to me, is the definition of insanity. You do the same thing, you get the same outcomes. How stupid are we? When there is an opportunity to do something that is transformational, and we tend to just focus on it's just too hard and it's going to cost too much money. And it's not, because it's going to cost us more if we do nothing.
Well, there was like the Auckland Waterfront Consortium, the sunken stadium, and then go back to 2008, as you say, where it was, going to be plonked on the waterfront, which is essentially where a car park for imported Japanese vehicles is at the moment. And then, 16, 17 years later, we're still sitting here talking about it again, and that's a whole generation's gone past. I suppose that's what most people's fear is that what are the same people involved in government, the same people involved in decisions? Are we still going to be sitting here in 20 years' time saying, Jim, what a bugger, you suggested this 20 years ago?
I know, and I'll be pissed off, but at the end of the day, and I've done it 20 times already, I've thought to myself, you know what, this is just frigging too hard. Why am I wasting my time? I'll just go and play some more golf or do enjoyable things. But then I think, and then about half an hour later, I think, no, I'm not. I'm just going to keep pushing away. We've got good people as part of this consortium who've done this thing globally so many times, and every time we show people, they get more and more excited about the possibilities. So you just got to say, well, you know what? Let's just keep trying to find a way around all the hurdles that are in place.
Two things before we go, and I thank you so much for your time and answering all the questions. The net carbon zero target that we're after, building something like this, I mean, it depends on what articles you read, but I read articles where between 4 and 8% of the total global CO2 emissions come from concrete. This is a massive concrete edifice. How do you balance that out? And is that something that the government is going to sit there and actually balk on in the end and say, hang on a second, that's just going to completely upset what we're trying to achieve in terms of our net carbon rate?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, and that's part of our thinking, it's part of the design concept, is obviously the sustainability and all that type of thing. So that's a big part of it. And it's part of the whole smart city and how this can help engage, various ways through sustainability and the practices that can be put in place. To make sure that it actually is in line with all those future requirements and things. It's like, again, it's not just a concrete box. It's been well thought through as to how it can actually achieve some of those requirements in the world that we live in at the moment.
Jim Doyle, finally then, what happens from here? How does the next day, week, months, the year unfold for you in the project?
Well, at the moment, the council have put together a process that they're working through. There was obviously lots of requests from Eden Park for more and more money for the future. And there was a few, noises about other options. So the council put through a process and said, well, let's look at the options. To my understanding, 4 options have been put forward to the council in a working group that they've set up. And that working group will work through a process and make a recommendation to council as to where they progress with, sometime I think at the end of March. My personal opinion is that they're not going to choose one out of the 4 and say, right, that's it forever, but they might end up in 1 or 2 and working with 1 or 2 for the next year or so to see if it can be actually turned into reality.
I appreciate your time as always. As I say, it's just when you look at the pictures, you sit there and you just go, wow. And I don't know anyone that can look at that and not go, wow. And that's a pretty good place to start from, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, there's people at all ends of the spectrum of life, and I'm guaranteed there'll be some people who'll say it's a piece of crap. But that's life. You can never please everybody. And again, if you don't get out and try and achieve something and just sit on the fence and be one of those people. But I think the overwhelming feedback we have it's outstanding. And a lot of times when I've sent pictures before it went in the media, to people in confidence and confidentiality, they would come back and say, there's only one word I can say, it's just awesome or things like that. So it's just, you're right, it's breathtaking. So hopefully we can make it happen, Martin.